The UK's rivers, streams and lakes are all under attack by an infestation of American signal crayfish. In this short documentary, I will be looking at the three ways of assessing the rising population of the red signal crayfish and the rapid fall of the white-clawed crayfish. Here in the UK, the white-clawed crayfish is the only one native crayfish. They have a light brown outer shell with a pinky white underside, giving them the name the white-clawed crayfish. Their average length is 6 to 12 centimeters, weight 90 grams, and lifespan of 8 to 12 years, and can be found in waters up to 5 feet deep across the country. The white-clawed crayfish used to be found commonly across the country, but are becoming less frequent ever since the introduction of the red signal crayfish from America in 1980. The white-clawed crayfish have been in serious decline due to the red signal crayfish being highly aggressive, territorial, and bringing over a fungal infection that our native crayfish had no tolerance to and has a 100% death rate if infected. In the Shurston and Tetbury Avon, the white-clawed crayfish had become extinct due to the crayfish plague. In the summer of 1998 and 1999, an experiment was carried out to assess whether the plague had finally gone. They did this by placing a handful of white-clawed crayfish in a sealed trap for a year-long period, feeding and checking weekly. They had no fatalities, proving the plague had finally disappeared. After reintroducing the white-clawed crayfish back into the selected parts of the Avon, a survey was carried out in the reintroduction sites and also 50 meters up and downstream of these sites. This was done so that they could properly assess the population. They used two methods, rock turning and trapping, and two graphs were drawn up with the data that they found, which could be used to assess the population of the white-clawed crayfish. These two graphs show a steady increase in the population of white-clawed crayfish along the Avon reintroduction sites. In the population of crayfish, there are three main ways that this can be done: trapping, stone turning, and riverbed draining. Trapping is one of the most common techniques used when assessing the population of white-clawed crayfish or any crayfish population in that matter. The best way to do this is called triple catch surveying. This is where traps are set in the same place 3 times over a 2-week period. Traps are left overnight and collected in the morning. Every crayfish which is trapped is marked with a number and then released back into the same place they were caught. The traps will be placed back in the same spot 3 times, but with a 5-day interval between each trapping session. This is to stop the crayfish from getting trap happy, which is where they become accustomed to the traps and might not want to feed again so soon, messing with the data collection. Trapping is an incredibly easy and fairly reliable way of calculating the population of large crayfish. It is not weather dependent and clarity of water does not cause a problem. They are able to be deployed any time of the year and the water depth is not an issue. However, the negatives far outweigh the positives. When trapping, most juveniles are unable to be trapped due to their small size, allowing them to escape through the net of the trap unless the trap has been modified to keep the smaller and younger crayfish within. The traps are regularly tampered with by the members of public. This could allow the data to be less reliable, and finally the crayfish can become trap happy. Rock turning is where ecologists such as Paul Bradley from the Chartered Institute of Ecology and Environmental Management will use a 1 meter squared quadrat and a plastic bucket with a clear bottom so that they can see through the water to find the crayfish as they rummage through the riverbed. This is a much slower but more reliable method than trapping because juveniles are easily picked up and can't escape. It is standard practice when rock turning to place a fine meshed net behind the investigator to catch large and small crayfish that manage to swim and evade capture or get taken by the river flow. There are some negatives to this technique, and they are that the rock turning surveying method is very weather dependent. If it is too cold, too windy, or heavy rain, the survey can't take place due to the endangering of the investigator. Also, this technique can't be done in deeper water and/or fast-flowing water for the same reasons. As we can see, there are a number of issues with these two population assessment techniques, but some positives if used together. As the paper by Spink et al. 1998 had discovered. Their results showed that traps caught far greater number of large white-clawed crayfish, and rock turning had the opposite, suggesting that the two survey techniques sampled different age classes, making these two sample methods reliable up to a point, and that if they were used together, the population assessment of crayfish in a river would be far more reliable. The draining the river technique is possibly the most expensive but more reliable method for population assessment of crayfish, as Chris Packman and Paul Bradley are about to demonstrate.
We're going to drain the stream. All right. It's like something off of Thunderbirds, isn't it? We've dammed a small section of the stream, and we're using a powerful pump to expose the rocky bed. This is the only way that an ecologist like Paul can accurately count how many crayfish are in this stream. So, Paul, we're now looking for those which were too small to be caught in the traps, yeah?
That's right. Now we start to find just how many are here. And there we go.
There's one.
There's one straight away. That's about 2 years old, that one. But there are much smaller ones in there than that.
There's one.
Just there, yeah.
There's another one.
Well, you're getting good at this. The large ones that people see in traps, just a very, very small proportion. When we look very carefully in the stream, we find up to...
Like
there's
that
another one.
There's another one, you say?
Up to 50 per square metre.
50?
50 per square metre in this very stream. And we find them 30 centimetres into the gravel as well, so literally millions of single crayfish.
Wow. Well, 50 per square metre is almost an infestation, isn't it? And I don't like to use that word.
I've visited this stream every year since 2001, and that's actually what I've seen, an infestation. In that time, all the fish have disappeared, and the native white-clawed crayfish have disappeared.
No fish at all?
No fish at all now in this stream.
They've eaten all of the eggs, all of the young, everything?
They seem to be.
From looking through the 3 population assessments for white-clawed and red signal crayfish, I conclude that if used together properly, trapping and rock turning can be a very effective way of assessing the population. But even though draining the riverbed can be extremely time-consuming, expensive and also dangerous to the further wildlife, I believe this is the best way and most effective means of population assessment within the crayfish species.